Welcome to a Superconscious Leader. I'm your host, Dr. Adil Dalal, and this is a great show for you if you want to be a superconscious leader. Folks, the world is shifting at a lightning speed. Technology is rewiring the rules. Generations are clashing in values and expectations. The AI revolution is unfolding at lightning speed and it is shifting our world, it is turning our world upside down. Stress, anxiety, burnout is at record highs. In this storm, the question isn't if change will hit you, the question is how prepared are you when it does? Are you the leader who panics, or will you be the leader who converts the pressure into possibilities? Right now, the time is amazing for leaders if, only if, you can lead with courage, with higher consciousness, and with clarity. So, this show is built for you to allow you not only to overcome the storm, but to be able to make this into your greatest advantage. Remember, in the age of AI, you do not need to be superhuman. You just need to be super conscious. So, welcome to the show. Your journey to the pinnacle of leadership begins here and begins now. Today, welcome to a super conscious leader. I am Dr. Adil Dalal. You're watching Now Media Television. Today, we are joined by an amazing guest, Dr. Jesse Hanson. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jesse.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adil. I'm grateful to be here with you.
Thank you. Dr. Jesse is a clinical psychologist with over 25 years of experience bridging somatic psychology, neuropsychology, and ancient wisdom and traditions. He has served as a clinical director at Helix Health Group in Toronto. He is also co-founded Atma Retreats in Costa Rica and has co-founded mentalhealth.com. Jesse's mission is to help people integrate mind, body, and spirit to heal trauma and unlock their fullest potential. Dr. Jesse, truly a warm welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adil, and just the equal recognition of you and the work you're doing, and grateful that this show exists, and how beautiful to have a place where it's open forum to discuss consciousness and evolution. So feel grateful to be brought in.
Thank you. And I think what you're doing is equally important and much more important, because trauma has become the, it's no longer a buzzword. It is reality, and it has set in to our society and taken roots very deep. And Jesse, as you know, I travel around the world, and I'm seeing that it is not just a US issue now. It is going around the world and very deep. So if you can share a little bit about how you got into this, a little bit about your background, so my audience understands the level of expertise you bring to this topic.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a saying called the wounded healer, and that is the journey of my own healing process becoming the fuel that helped me become the role of psychologist, holistic health practitioner, sound healing, all of these different elements that I love. And so that's ultimately how I got here, was being humble and deciding to look deeper into my own self and wanting to be towards superconscious. Of course, this was 25 years ago. And so I was a young Jesse, and I consider myself a world bridger. And what I mean by that is bridging ancient wisdom with modern science, bridging the best of the East and the West. There's tons of different dualities we could pull from. But these are what I learned have helped me so much on the healing journey. And some earliest trainings were that into, the social system and learning about social services and being of service that way. That didn't feel like a fit for me. I got in my early 20s, I decided to move into the world of holistic health. And at that time I was in California, so the perfect place to explore more naturopathy and holistic health. And that really opened my mind so much, and I started to really experience deep healing in my own life just from simple practices like yoga, meditation, healthier eating, diet, lifestyle choices. However, I realized by mid to late 20s that that wasn't enough, and that it
Mhm.
required also me to dig deeper into my consciousness and really look at, where I was creating my life from in terms of also, shadows and trauma and things
Mm.
that had happened that I wanted to kind of skate over and pretend it was all fine. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, it was that discovery process that brought me to clinical
Wow.
psychology, neuropsychology, and my experience was, as I entered those courses in my late 20s, after almost a decade of what most would call, colloquially speaking, soul searching, some work
Mhm.
like that, all of a sudden I was in these courses, and I think you'll appreciate this with your expertise as well, but I was like, wow, finally, with quantum physics and neuroscience, we have science that
Yeah.
has caught up with ancient wisdom and all of these
Yes.
practices I'd been studying. And so
Mhm.
that, through, my almost, decade of a combined master's PhD in neuropsychology, until I was in
Wow.
my 30s. And at that point, I really entered the field as a clinical director at Helix, you mentioned, in
Mhm.
Toronto back then. And that was my first real, running my own programming, running my own,
Yeah.
bringing people together for healing. It was absolutely incredible, and that's where I started to really. And I'd come out of Passages Malibu as well. I had a lot of my career
Mhm.
there. I love Passages, always grateful. So that exposed me to the world of addiction and recovery. And then the
Wow.
last roughly 10 years, I've been working pretty much exclusively with CEOs, doctors, lawyers, more sort of high functioning leaders, I would call them,
Yes.
for sure. And so I'm grateful to kind of have brought it all full circle. And I know, like you as well, it's that if we can help one leader wake up and
Absolutely.
become super conscious, it impacts so many people. And
Yeah.
it's amazing, right?
Truly, very well said, Jesse. I think this is the you mentioned a word which is very interesting, is a wounded healer. Uh, that so I believe that there's a saying, say, the hurt people hurt other people. People who are hurt other people. But what you're saying is that that pain you went through, and the growth you went through actually converted you into a healer. And that is something we need to teach our youngsters too, is that pain doesn't have to be something which you then spread in the world. You can use that pain to grow yourself. So could you explain how that changed you? It is a very important thing for us to learn about.
Yeah, the shift in consciousness from pain as problem to
Yes,
pain as
the
teacher,
teacher.
right? Pain
Exactly.
as guide. And
Yes.
the acknowledgement, I think that's the first step for any of us, and that was the first step for me, and having the appropriate teachers in my path at
Yeah.
that age that got me to think about it deeper. And I, to this day, I still carry that belief, and I still work with pain in my body and
Mhm.
my emotions in that way. And if we change to pain as teacher, then all of a sudden our pain is there to just show us what's out of balance, to show us where we're uh, turning a blind eye to some part of our
Yes.
psyche, perhaps, or physical pain, the old, just going to push through it until I have, fully torn rotator cuff, as
Yes.
opposed to slowing down and listening to the pain to heal the muscles in the
Very
beginning
true.
of the rupture, right? So for me personally, and the wounded healer is there's many references to that psychology. My most thought association is called Alex Gray.
Hmm.
His father was the one that, why we call it Gray's Anatomy, the famous TV show, as well as the
Oh,
medical
wow.
book. He was the
Okay.
son of Alex Gray Sr., so he had the precision
Mm.
of the medical mind and the doctor mind of understanding everything about third dimensional physiology, anatomy,
Mm.
biology. And yet,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, in his evolution of his father, he added in what I would call, from my nerdy language, but it would be the
Hmm.
quantum field. It would be, he added
Yeah.
in understanding electromagnetic energy, the different energy centers
Right.
in the body, the way the nervous system works, and he creates beautiful art. And one of my favorite pieces of
Wow.
him from him is called The Wounded Healer, and it's a
Okay.
three-part section like this.
Hmm.
And the first one is a human that looks like they're together. They look fine, but if
Hmm.
you look closer, their organs are sort of out of place, and there's like these twists and these knots within their body, and
Wow.
around them is not just pure light. There's maybe some serpents or skulls, something painful. And then the second image is all of that, but really blasted open, which is often called by, the psychology work of the hero's journey, of really opening ourselves up to see who we are. And it's very uncomfortable, right? But yet it is also part of how we expand our consciousness, is to start to realize what's underneath my ego, what's underneath the things that I want to call everything is fine. And then the third and final one is the person now fully put back together with all their organs, bones, everything in balance, and they're climbing the stairways of up to pure white light. And so you get the metaphor of that from a religious and spiritual context.
Yeah, exactly.
That to me, describing that picture is more or less the journey I've been on the last 25 years now. And really everything I share with my guests and my clients is things that I've moved through myself or learned the hard way, so to speak. So it's quite a powerful journey of becoming the wounded healer. And to your point, Dr. Adil, pain as teacher is one of the most pertinent shifts in belief structure and consciousness. Is that shift, willing to try that on, having some guides, some support, someone to learn from or lean into as we try to shift our minds, because we've been programmed to think, avoid pain at all costs, numb it, dissociate from it, Netflix it, whatever, as opposed to be with it, right? Which is the ancient teaching.
I totally agree. And I think, today leaders are not in touch with themselves. That is the issue. Is I think when we are experiencing pain, go deep into it. Do not, they try to push it aside. They try to, kind of get into activities so that they forget that. But if you really go deep into the pain and let yourself be in that situation for a couple of days, you will see that growth happen. It is such a powerful experience. When you're happy, be very happy. When you're really in pain, go deeper into it. Ask the why. Why am I this way? The metacognition kicks in and you get some insights, Jesse, which are just amazing. So thank you for sharing this. I have one question on leaders. We are seeing, at least I am seeing, immense growth in the trauma and the pain amongst leaders. Leadership is shifting at a amazing pace. The world is really, as I said in the beginning, the show is created because leadership is no longer what it used to be. The models have to be broken. We need to create brand new models of leadership. And that is why the show exists, as a Superconscious leader. What has been your experience about leaders, the kind of exponential growth of pain and trauma amongst leaders right now? And I don't want to lead you into that. If you've seen it the other way, then please, share that with my audience, please.
I do see it in alignment with what you share. And I wonder if maybe it would be helpful to slow that down one previous question, which is simply to better articulate the understanding of trauma as you and I understand it in our studies and all that. But for not everyone always has that clarity.
Right. Folks, please stay with us. We'll be right back with Dr. Jesse Hanson. We'll be talking more about trauma and pain and how to heal yourself from within. So please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Imagine partnering with a firm that fuses lean precision with AI foresight, turning every process into a profit engine built on the foundation of operational excellence. Hi, I am Dr. Adil Dalal, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Process Solutions. For 20 years, we have empowered over 9,500 leaders across 25 industries and 5 continents and delivered savings from $1 million to $39 million via rapid transformations using AI, digital tools, lean, agile, and Six Sigma technologies. Through our award-winning workshops, lean AI frameworks, and human-centric coaching, we elevate culture, eliminate waste, and ignite sustainable operational excellence. Elevate your people, accelerate your performance. Visit pinnacleprocess.com and reach your pinnacle today. And we're back. Let's continue this powerful conversation. Welcome back to A Superconscious Leader. We're here with our guest, Dr. Jesse Hanson, who is an amazing psychologist and who has really healed trauma for leaders around the world. Welcome back, Dr. Hanson. We were talking in the last segment about leaders and how we are seeing exponential growth of trauma and pain amongst leaders and how the leadership model needs to change. What have you observed as you go through your practice?
Yeah, very, very similar. And I resonate with the question. And I want to just take a couple minutes to quickly articulate my understanding of trauma so that it makes more sense to our listeners in terms of understanding. And I think the biggest distinction and the most common thing I see as people do want to dive deeper into understanding themselves is that trauma is not only physical, sexual assaults and war vets and car accidents. Absolutely. Of course, those things are trauma. Clinical language, those would be called acute trauma or often just times physical trauma. And they are their own process in terms of how the healing process happens for those. The other trauma that I make the loving argument that all of us have in some way, shape, or form is called developmental trauma or attachment trauma. And these are more emotional experiences. These are themes primarily of neglect, inundation, abandonment. So even the person that feels like they had the perfect childhood, but that was actually quite controlled environment, there's some trauma, because here's where I love the science of it is in some ways it takes out the ego or the argument of, well, whatever, I don't want to believe I have trauma, or no, I'm fine. It's like, well, let's actually do a brain scan. Let's actually look at your electromagnetic field. Let's study your nervous system with love, simply to say, hey, actually, there are ways in which your nervous system gets dysregulated. And I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to any listener. And I admit a lot of times working with more corporate leaders, I call them left brain junkies, like very much in the left brain and the mind and the control, logical, don't necessarily want to admit or open up to much emotional processes. And so that's where the science is so helpful, because it's like, hey, you can tell me your story or the rest of your life. I'm just looking at your nervous system and your body. And that's what it's telling me is there is trauma here, and you're amazing. You're an amazing doctor. You're an amazing CEO. And maybe part of that is from something else that happened earlier that gave you the drive to do that, right? And there's light and shadow in that, judgment. So that to me is a key understanding of when I answer your question more deeply, is that our listeners understand developmental or attachment trauma is more insidious than we want to admit as a culture. And also that it is, in terms of the nervous system and the hard, cold science behind it, it is just as damaging, or what we would say dysregulating, as physical, sexual, acute traumas that everyone thinks of as trauma. So if we hold that lens, even if the person knows they did not have any physical, sexual trauma, but they had some kind of developmental trauma, what I see is this, Dr. Adil, is that first of all, I think you're absolutely right. Your intro is so amazing, and I love how you talk about even AI and everything. We really are living at a quite ludicrous time on the planet, and there's so many things happening, and the old pressurized system of corporate leadership as a machine, as solely left-brained, as always just productivity, profit, productivity, profit. That you're right, that I believe that's at the core of it, that there needs to be a systemic shift of realizing, wait, does really money matter more than human health and happiness and brain health? And so that's what I see, is that I don't know that it's necessarily that there is more trauma necessarily coming up, but maybe that we're seeing it more, partly because the world's more ready to listen, and partly because, there are, I think, more leaders that do want to, that are, in secret admitting to guys like me that I have everything, but I'm not happy. Right. And it's because they're living in a pressurized consciousness
Very
that's
true.
all driven by these different what we will commonly call
Yeah.
stress. But as you said, how do you turn pressure into something positive? How do you turn that into potential? You said pressure into potential.
Right.
That is not just luck or fate. That is someone knowing and understanding how to process trauma, how to
Yeah.
move through a tough experience and make it great, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And there is a science. It is a science, right? I mean, there are so many great stories about people who have undergone immense amount of pressure. And if you look at stories like Henry Ford, he went bankrupt even before he started Ford. Oprah Winfrey, she basically was told she's not meant for radio or TV, and she came out of, she was abused early on in her life. We have kind of Steven Spielberg. He was really he was considered a failure. Walt Disney was considered a failure. How did they get to that stage? Is they converted their failure mindset into a growth mindset, and that is the secret. And what you are doing with leaders is such an important thing. And you mentioned the word stress. Does stress, could you explain the difference between trauma and stress to my audience? What is that linkage there?
Yeah, in my understanding of it, they, almost stress would be considered a trauma. And in the cold science of it, it's simply anytime our nervous system gets dysregulated, that's a traumatic experience. Whether or
Okay.
not we imprint, download, and store it as trauma or towards
Mm,
PTSD kind of things, that's up to how we relate to the traumatic experience, the traumatic
right.
event, right? And so there it is.
Okay.
I call this the EOS, the emotional operating
Mhm.
system. So
I see.
depending on my current version, am I operating on
Mhm.
my 2-year-old V 1.0, or am I at my 25-year-old V 3.0,
Yes.
or where is my emotional
Mhm.
operating system? That's going to determine why. And there's been tons of studies on
Mhm.
this. I'm sure you've read them, where you can take a
Yes.
pool of people that went through a traumatic experience, and certain ones of them
Mhm.
form PTSD, and some don't, and some move through it quickly, and some take a little
Right.
while, never form PTSD. It's not that the event was that it was the same event. It's how they process, right? And so I
That's
think
right.
that's also at the heart of what's happening with leaders, is that,
Mhm.
they are humans. They're still human beings. And so,
Very true.
there is a more of a movement. The fact that this show exists, the fact that, there are other shows coming that promote this, is proof that leaders are being encouraged to, feel their feelings a bit more, be
Yeah.
human. And I think that is what butts up against this old system where it's like there's no room for that. Or if you
Correct.
show that, you're a bad leader, you're weak.
Mhm.
Whereas some of my greatest success stories of men and women that I've been able to shepherd through some turning some poop into fertilizer, let's call it.
Right.
Uh, you know,
I like
some of
that.
those, I look at it and they are now proud, and I'm talking big
Mhm.
men of billion-dollar companies, proud to actually be able to cry in front of their
Yeah.
teams when it's authentic.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the kind of leadership that we're calling for right now, to be, strong and soft, to be like amber fleece.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And now with the age of AI and robotics, humanity is much more at need. That will be your differentiator as a leader. Otherwise, you will just be another robot. And,
Yeah.
and that is, I think, going to be a very critical thing. And I think in the future segments, we'll be talking a little bit about the mind, body, spirit. But what do you think is the why is the fun element missing from leadership today? It's all work, work, work. The, if you understand neuroscience, your brain actually absorbs a lot more when you are having fun. So how do we teach our leaders to do something more fun, more engaging?
Yeah. When I lived in Toronto, Dr. Adil, I got a lot of opportunities to go into like lunch and learns, different big corporations and all
Yeah,
that. And it was so consistent. The ones that had ping pong tables and
yeah,
snack machines and like places for them, like they were by far not only the best ones to go into, just, you feel the energy of it, but
yeah.
also like knowing their productivity, knowing all that. So to
Mhm.
your point, we live in a time now where we know this both
Yeah,
neuroscientifically even corporate culture studies show this.
Yeah.
And yet, and I think it's kind of circles back to the previous answer, which is that, we are still kind of stuck in, let's call it a stone age of performance, and stone,
Yes.
pun being stone, just being like a bit hard.
Yes.
And so it's still like breaking the mold. I think there's still
Yeah.
a way in which leaders are having to break the mold, and there's a lot of resistance, both from their original programming of what a business leader is, as well as
Right.
possibly some of the higher ups in a corporate structure that are telling them, like, no, we don't have the budget to do this, and
Yes.
they have to really fight for
Sure.
fun, fight for the right
Yes.
brain, fight for bihemispheric
Absolutely.
brain activity. But it's such a great point to bring up, and it does circle back to, though, the other side of pain, but letting pain be there, letting the fun be there. And that's one of my main core
Yeah.
concepts when I do hold space for leaders or for anyone, is that there are no bad parts in there. Everyone
Right.
has their purpose. It's just about how we integrate them and how we organize them, the different versions of us, how we show up. Can we be attuned? And when I see that come into fruition, and you said earlier too about having courage in your intro. You said it takes
Yeah.
courage to do that, and to really focus
Very
on my
true.
consciousness.
Yeah.
I feel like that that is such a true statement of, and yet those are things we have to earn, because
Yes.
they're our birthright, but then they get taken away through different
Very true.
experiences. And the leaders that are willing to do that inner work and evolve themselves, it always converts over to their business and structures and everything.
Excellent. Very well said, Dr. Hanson. How will my audience find you?
Easiest way to find me these days is my website, which is hansonhealing.com. It's just my last name, Hanson, the word healing.com. And that's where you can find me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hanson. I will be right back. This is the Superconscious Leader, and please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back with Dr. Jesse Hanson. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Imagine partnering with a firm that fuses lean precision with AI foresight, turning every process into a profit engine built on the foundation of operational excellence. Hi, I am Dr. Adil Dalal, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Process Solutions. For 20 years, we have empowered over 9,500 leaders across 25 industries and 5 continents, and delivered savings from $1 million to $39 million via rapid transformations using AI, digital tools, lean, agile, and Six Sigma technologies. Through our award-winning workshops, lean AI frameworks, and human-centric coaching, we elevate culture, eliminate waste, and ignite sustainable operational excellence. Elevate your people, accelerate your performance. Visit pinnacleprocess.com and reach your pinnacle today. And we're back. Let's continue this powerful conversation. Welcome back to A Superconscious Leader. You can watch this show at 3 p.m. Central every Saturday on Now Media TV. And if you miss it live, then you can always download the Roku app, iOS app, or you can catch it on Spotify, iHeartRadio. So Now Media is here whenever you are, and you can catch it live, or you can catch it whenever you have the time. We're back with Dr. Jesse Hanson. We've had a couple of amazing segments with him. This segment, we're getting into a little bit of the science. We're going to convert the trauma into growth. So, Dr. Jesse Hanson, if you may just educate my audience on the neuroscience of growth, and how does the brain development, from the early stages to the adult stage, how does it have an impact on overcoming this trauma as we grow up?
Beautiful question, important question. And I've already done a decent job of articulating the different types of trauma. So I'm going to share another quick piece with our listeners to help understand how the original growth happens, which is simply conception, birth, childhood into adult years. And I can share that quickly, but just to say is that often we forget, we know now very clearly in neuroscience world that a key to health is bihemispheric brain activity. The corpus callosum, the nerve ganglia here that swirls the information back and forth. And the more it's studied, the more the language is becoming that it is almost as if there really are two separate brains, two separate people, you could almost say, that are in there. And this quick story I'll tell is going to help everyone understand really what is left and right brain, because the common answer you see in the Google verse is, oh, left brain is for thinking and logic and right brain is for art and music and crying. And there is some truth to that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it is deeper than that and it's more dynamic. And so as we are being created, conception in mother's womb, what's happening in there is that left brain is all the matter is getting formed, but really in terms of electromagnetic energy and neuronal networks being formed, it is the right brain. And so I offer that to our listeners. The right brain is not just art and music, but it is the beingness of who we are. It is simply the I am consciousness. I exist. I am a being before I know my name, before I know that I even need food to survive, all these things. Only at about 1.5 to 2 years, sometimes as late as 2.5 years, the left brain really starts to form. What do we like to call this time? The terrible twos, AKA I'm starting to figure things out. I'm starting to take all that data from the right brain, just that's all called somatic data or implicit data, warm data. And it's literally just like an animal or a baby having an experience. They don't have to have a lot of fancy words to put on it, but then we do. And then we start to develop what's called our will and the beginning of our ego. And so it's only at that time that the left brain starts to come on. Yet if the right brain isn't getting all of that information from being a human, from being a being, the left brain has nothing to do. And even as it gets the information, it's a mixture of, I do think there's some genetic codings in this in terms of how control works, but I also believe that a lot of it is systemic, cultural, familiar, religious. But there's all these constructs that we've created that sort of empower the left brain to say, well, I need to control you. I need to make sure you don't cry when I don't want you to cry. I want to make sure you don't scream when I don't want you to scream. Whereas a baby and an animal, they just go, they shake, they do whatever. They're inhibitionless in that way. And I'm a full advocate that we need both brains, and we can't all just be running around like babies through our whole life, right? And yet when we can understand this, and then what's meant to happen in genetic source codes, kind of original programming is, now the left brain's on, but guess what? We're fostered, we're loved, we're nurtured, we're taught to be a kid. The right brain grows. Oh, get a little more schooling, a little more training. The left brain grows. This grows, that grows, and they swirl. And the bihemispheric brain activity that's proper growth. That's original growth. That the more we have traumas, physical, sexual, acute, developmental, neglect, rejection, whatever, guess what happens is the right brain gets pushed down, because why? It hurts. It hurts too much to feel that pain. And so we get better at left brain activities, and we become more robotic. We become less human, and it's okay. It all happens to all of us. There's no judgment. It's that becoming conscious means becoming bihemispheric again. And it's not only that it's like feelings and crying and being weak, it's our insights, it's our creativity, it's our pineal gland, in ancient times called the third eye, or the seat of the soul, the seeing. And so if we honor that piece of how growth happens originally, and then look at how do we turn trauma into growth, we have to, first of all, create, using the left brain, create some intellect, understanding, being able to talk about it, being able to accept or acknowledge what has happened. And then there are many different techniques, of which I've been studying for 20 years, such as EMDR, sensory motor psychotherapy, brain mapping, out there, visualizations, which I can't wait to talk to you about in a few minutes here, is that, there's all these techniques, but there are ways that we know how to get back in the right brain. And the clinical language is called sequencing. Sequencing means releasing the stored electromagnetic energy, neuromuscular energies, And when that happens,
Mhm.
I feel good again. I feel better. I feel alive. I
Very
can
true.
feel my things, and then I have to rejig it. But we at any age, we can reactivate this
Very
original
true.
growth
Very true.
pattern, you know?
I think what you said is so beautifully explained. Thank you very much. And it reminds me of one of my favorite people is Dr. Wayne Dyer. He
Yes.
had a he really was a super conscious soul, and what he mentioned was very insightful. Is saying for 9 months as we are growing, we are trusting the universe to form our brain, to form our body, our eyes, our arms, everything. We're letting the universe do it for us. As soon as we come out and we get the, as you said, the left brain starts developing, we start getting an identity. We no longer trust the universe. We want to do things ourselves.
Control it.
And that is really the control. And that is a lot of the things is where I always believe the universe is much more intelligent than any of us. And sometimes you let the universe do things for us. Trust. And leaders have a lot of ego, and that ego makes them control freaks. And that is also the seed of a lot of the trauma that is created in them. And one of the things I've worked with a lot of leaders, and I've written the book, The V Factor: Power of Visualization, and I use power of visualization, cybernetics. Psycho-cybernetics is another really great way to get people to understand themselves better. And what I do is I help people really visualize the future version of themselves, and it really changes them. It really makes them see what it can do. How have you used visualization in your therapy, and how powerful is that tool for you?
One of the most powerful. And the biggest
Mm.
challenge I have as a therapist is helping people believe that. Where I'm going to start referring your book now.
Yes.
I need to start referring your book. And there's there's other brilliant minds out there that know this. Dr. Joe
Yeah.
Dispenza, Wayne Dreyer. It's there. My version on it is this: the experiential and imaginal brain respond the
Hmm.
exact same. We know
Right.
that very finite, very clinically approved data
Yeah.
that we know that. And a great example is dreams. Oftentimes
Yeah.
it's wake up, oh my gosh, was that real? No. But the
Mm.
body's responding as if it was real.
Yes.
So to me, that's all the real left brain data that anyone would really need to know to be like, well,
Yeah.
why don't I at least try it on? Why don't I at
Yeah.
least give the potential of that? So to deepen that and share a couple quick stories is that one, the imagination is more a function of the right brain, though there's left brain elements of it. And that, to say even just the practice of imagining or visualizing is
Hmm.
stimulating the right brain and getting that
Right.
bihemispheric brain activity going. So it's a great practice, even if you don't know what you're doing.
Hmm.
When you actually know what you're doing and you're working with the quantum field and the law of attraction and the power of what I think about, I draw towards me. There you go. There's Joe Dispenza's work, respect to him and
Right.
his work.
Exactly.
In my work, I believe and I see how all of us humans, we have this one body, but within this one body, there are trillions of neural networks that
Hmm.
can coagulate and conglomerate into all sorts of different arrangements, but they equal different parts of self. And we always
Right.
talk about this oh, part of me wants the pizza, but part of me knows I should eat the salad. But we don't like we say that stuff, but we don't often realize it literally is as if there could be more than one person in there, and we have to
Yeah.
choose who we want to bring forward. And so
Sure.
I often with my clients like visualize the corporate leader version of them versus the little boy who just wants to go surfing versus the lover who feels
Hmm.
neglected versus, and so that's how I often use it and see it. And it's very consistent with myself and others that when people start to use this power of visualization,
Hmm.
introspectively, the way they're able to make choices changes for the better.
Changes them for the, yeah, absolutely. And I really believe that is the secret superpower of leaders. If they learn how to do that, it is a it is sadly a lost art, because in the ancient times they really knew how to use that, and we've lost that. It is an inbuilt simulator, and we just so Dr. Hanson, next segment we're going to get into what you talk about, the mind, body, spirit. A lot of leaders are mostly in the mind and body. The spirit gets neglected. Let's go a little bit into that because corporate world doesn't understand how powerful bringing spirit into a corporate life can be. So thank you, folks. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back on A Superconscious Leader. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Imagine partnering with a firm that fuses lean precision with AI foresight, turning every process into a profit engine built on the foundation of operational excellence. Hi, I am Dr. Adil Dalal, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Process Solutions. For 20 years, we have empowered over 9,500 leaders across 25 industries and 5 continents and delivered savings from $1 million to $39 million via rapid transformations using AI, digital tools, lean, agile, and Six Sigma technologies. Through our award-winning workshops, lean AI frameworks, and human-centric coaching, we elevate culture, eliminate waste, and ignite sustainable operational excellence. Elevate your people, accelerate your performance. Visit pinnacleprocess.com and reach your pinnacle today. And we're back. Let's continue this powerful conversation. Welcome back to the Superconscious Leader. We're here with Dr. Jesse Hanson, and we're going deep into the topic of trauma, growth, and how leaders can overcome stress and be the superconscious leader they need to be in the age of AI. So welcome back, Dr. Hanson. Really glad to have you. It's been an amazing 3 segments. Let's wrap it up with some really getting deep into the idea of spirituality. You know, I think I would just want to let the audience know that behind you is not a screensaver. You're in Costa Rica, and this
right.
is nature. And we've lost that. We've lost the touch with nature. We've lost the touch with our inner self. And when we only focus on the mind and body, we're losing a third of our being. So, how do corporations, what is your advice for corporations to bring spirituality into their corporate life without linking it to religion and other dogmas which exist? So, what is your advice, doctor?
And without being too woo-woo, right, as it's often called in
Yes.
the colloquial vernacular, right, to not be
Yeah.
too out there. So yeah, what comes to me first is as you brought this topic up, I wanted to do my best to sort of translate
Mhm.
the idea of spirituality with the neuroscience of it first, and then from there kind of find what's the wisdom and how leaders use this. And I admit this is much more from my own musings than any research I've found, but as I'm sitting with it, it's this notion that, well, really, what is spirit? It is the part of us that wants to be kind, the part of us that
Yeah.
wants to be kind to ourselves and others, that wants to
Mhm.
be joyful, right?
Yes.
Uh, and so if we look at it that way, like you said, not attaching it to any specific religion or spiritual
Yes.
practice, if we just look at what does it mean when we have spirit, when have a spiritual practice, it's like we're doing something to better ourselves. We're doing something to want to show up with more kindness and
Mhm.
ultimately to want to understand why I do what I do, right?
Yeah.
And so if we look at it that way, I would almost see it as, when we are filled with spirit, as a saying might say, our cerebrospinal fluid is flowing beautifully. Our
Yes.
muscles are not too loose, not too tight.
Yeah.
In other words, there's almost like a homeostatic balance,
Mhm.
homeostasis
Very
style
true.
balance that exists. And that's why so often spiritual pictures are of
Yes.
people cross-legged, meditating,
Yes.
sort of holding themselves in a
Yeah.
kind way. And I feel like if we honor that, then it's also to say, well, why wouldn't we want our nervous systems to, and to go really specific, this would be called
Yeah.
the polyvagal part of our nervous system connected to the
Yeah.
parasympathetic, which is also, again, one of the main goals of brain health. So
Right.
that way, spirit really is sort of the optimal brain health, where we're not just
Very
a
true.
mind trying to control a body, a left brain trying to control a
Hmm.
right brain, but we are the bihemispheric brain, knowing, yes, I've got
Yes.
stuff I got to get done, and
Yeah.
I've got kids that love me, or I've got to show my coworkers love because they're human,
Yeah.
right?
Very true.
So assuming that, yeah, I'm getting the nods from you. So the resonance there of that, then really, I think it's a conglomerate of some of the things we've already discussed in earlier segments of allowing there to be fun in the workshop, in the
Yeah.
workplace, allowing there to be more okayness with a leader or anyone else having emotions that aren't perfect.
Yeah.
Uh, and then of course that some obvious easy solutions are, and some of the stuff that I've done in my past career in big
Hmm.
cities is around bringing spirit in, is simply like guiding them through meditation together, guiding them through a sound healing journey,
Yeah.
adding in a little bit of maybe group sharing. Like it's not
Hmm.
rocket science. It's already
Yes.
there, right? It's already there in us. We've just
Very
agreed
true.
on this culture that says that
Hmm.
part's not allowed. And I love what
Yeah.
you just said too. It's like, if we don't have this, we're missing out on a third of our beingness.
Yeah.
And as I've highlighted, we're missing out on possibly the most important third, the
Yes.
bagel,
Very
right?
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings the healing. The spirit is what will heal. And, the thing is, uh, without that, when we talk about mindfulness, and I honestly don't like that word mindfulness, because technically it should be mindlessness, because we are always mindful. We're
Yeah.
always full of things in our mind.
Yeah.
Okay. What meditation is really letting go,
Yeah.
allowing that, spiritual being of yourself to take a little control of yourself, and trusting it. It really allows you to understand yourself better. When you're able to let go for yourself, you allow little space for your teams too. You do not hold them tight, and that allows them to be more creative. So it is a impact which has corporate wide. So leaders who know how to do that, who know how to let go of a little control, can be really dynamically change their workplace. The corporate culture transforms, and it can be an amazing experience for everyone, not just themselves. So I really want to see how we can teach our leaders to do some of the letting go. What have you seen? How can we get that into our corporate culture now?
Just highlighting that name, you named the trickle down effect of, one leader
Yes.
being courageous to show the practice of
Hmm.
letting go inspires it in others. And so I love what you're saying there. And I would just say that, yeah, again, I said earlier that I have seen it as something that needs to be earned. There's a
Hmm.
reason that is usually, though there are corporate pressures and productivity and profit and all those
Hmm.
pressures, there's usually pressures that happen before, like childhood,
Hmm.
where
Right.
there's a reason why I'll be the role play of this person. There's a reason why I built those control mechanisms. There's a reason why I started acting that way in the first place. And like I said, it
Right.
all comes back to our childhood. So to me, it's the leaders, like the only ones I've seen it do it genuinely, and not just sort of
Hmm.
from like a bypass kind of way of like, fine, I'll just let it go. But to really genuinely embody that are the ones that have had the courage to be super
Hmm.
conscious and to do the
Right.
work, and to really, help heal that inner child, help that place
Hmm.
from where it came from. And
Right.
what's wild is that oftentimes, if not every time, their overall productivity and everything goes up. It's like the fear
Yes.
is, if I don't hold it together, this is all going to
Very
fall
true.
apart. But ironically, and you said something last segment so powerful, which was that, yeah, in the womb, we don't even realize it, but we're fully trusting the universe to
Yeah.
build our body. And that's faith. That's, I mean, that's surrender.
Hmm.
And a lot of the somatic practices that I do with my clients are around this practice of letting go, whether that's
Mhm.
emotionally, physically. Just even one of the things I bug people all the time about is softening the jawbone. And that's a
Yeah.
fun one for our listeners, is just to know that,
Mhm.
per de facto settings of physics and gravity and
Yeah,
neuromuscular intelligence, our jawbone's not meant to be tight all the time.
I
That's a
know.
byproduct of the left brain hyperactivity. So even as a leader, as any human, if I just
Mhm.
practice softening my jawbone every so often, more often, that already
Mm.
starts to help that experience of, okay, maybe I can trust, right?
Yeah,
And there's a huge overlay of faith, and it doesn't have to be in any particular religious or spiritual deity or
correct.
entity or anything. It just has to be faith, that just the same faith that built me in the womb. Somehow
Yeah.
I got here, like,
Mhm.
keep taking care of me.
Yeah, very true.
I
Excellent.
think that's the only genuine way. Anything other than that is a coping skill, is something that,
Yeah,
coping with it as opposed to really getting to the roots of it.
yeah,
That's it's just so rewarding too, to witness these guys go through these processes and face this stuff that they've long buried and thought was fine, and then to see them change as leaders
right.
is, it's really truly incredible.
Excellent. Very well said. Dr. Hanson, what can you advise the audience, leaders who are struggling with trauma, pain, or even leaders who feel they are very confident? What do you advise on getting to that superconscious level? What would be something they can do on a daily basis, which will start making that shift for them?
Simple, easy, free one: soften the jaw, soft jaw.
Mm.
Uh,
Wow,
it's
excellent.
amazing. I've gotten the feedback from people that were, doubting or whatever, and they're like, okay, I've been doing it for like a month now, and I hate to admit it, but I do feel more relaxed. I do feel I can make a different choice when
Yeah,
I'm practicing the soft jaw technique. Beyond that, like, again, some of this is obvious, and yet it's good to just remind people it is that simple and easy. Is
mm,
a meditation practice, any kind of embodiment practice. Meditation does not have to be perfect Zen sitting still. There's such thing as
right.
Zazen, walking meditations,
Mhm.
different
Yes.
styles of movement meditation. More of just
Hmm.
the practice of slowing down in our body is another really simple one that starts to help
Hmm.
open up consciousness. And then to me, after that, after things like that fit in that same realm: saunas, cold plunges, working out,
Hmm.
bike riding, all sort of these obvious things. The next layers of depth would be,
Yes.
starting to do personal development work
Yeah.
on themselves, and really look at where does this, why do I want to relate to pressure in this way, right?
Excellent. Excellent.
And that's where I see, and then that's something that, yeah, I've been guiding both, personal and group experiences like that for the last 20 years. And, it's so consistent, where I see that's the next level of change, where
Hmm.
getting back home, even if they miss a meditation, they're still okay.
Yeah.
Still great to meditate, but it's not like before. It's like, oh my gosh, if I don't do my breath work in the morning,
I know.
I'm a monster. It's like, well,
Hmm.
okay, you can get to the roots of that monster,
Yeah.
and then you can still do breath work when it fits, but not as a, catch-all, right? Or a
Right.
coping mechanism.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That is very insightful. And Dr. Hanson, in the last minute we have, if you can uh, share where can my audience find you, and any final words you have of wisdom, if you can share very quickly, that would be great.
Thank you. Yes, you can find me at my website, hansonhealing.com. That's my last name, Hanson, the word healing.com. And my final words of wisdom is simply that it's about the journey, not the destination. And what really
Yes.
matters is showing up. What really matters is that you're even listening to this. Lets you know that some parts of you do want to be more conscious. And that's what matters. And then finding what fits into the rhythms of your life, what fits into the levels of your current courage to look
Hmm.
deeper, and trust that at least for the time, that is enough, you know, and that all of us are here for the same reason: to awaken, to learn how to be joy, to learn how to be love and joy. And that can happen even as a leader.
Yeah.
Even when we take on more responsibility, there's still ways to learn how to relate
Hmm.
to it in joyful ways. But we have to do some work to earn that.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Hanson. This has been a truly inspiring session and a inspiring show. So thank you for being a really valuable guest on this Superconscious Leader. So, folks, please get in touch with Dr. Hanson. You're going to really learn a lot. And please do not miss a single episode of A Superconscious Leader. I'm your host, Dr. Adil Dalal, and you can catch us every Saturday at 3 p.m. Central on Now Media TV, or you can download the Roku or iOS app and catch us there. You can go to YouTube, Superconscious Leader, or you can just follow us on Now Media TV, nowmedia.tv, and you can catch the show anytime. So do not miss any episode, and we'll see you next week. Please be with us and start getting into the mode of super consciousness. Remember, in the age of AI, you do not need to be superhuman. You just need to be super conscious. Thank you.